And we're back, baby. Breaking Bet here on this Saturday morning, May 25th. I know you guys miss me. Haven't seen you since Monday when we were talking a little pre-tournament for the SEC, ACC, Big 12, Pac 12. And here we are. We have the semifinals and finals for all of the tournaments. And I needed a little bit of help to break this one down. So I brought in my guy, John Bollman, the guy who I've been pretty much doing podcasts with at least once a week over the last month plus. So, John, thanks so much for taking the time this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. We got a fun day of college baseball today. I mean, we've got all the games that are scheduled and, we got lines for already. And then a lot of games where, they're double elimination. So if certain teams win, we'll get, even more baseball games. So a long, fun day today.
You know what? It's kind of annoying because one thing we talked about on Monday was each conference, the tournaments for them, they have their own set of rules. Like there's a lot of different rules for different conferences, and sometimes doing all this handicapping, we're just like in a mess right now. This entire week, we're trying to see. If this team loses, are they still in? If they are, who do they play? And then who do they pitch because they're on day 4 and they used fucking 20 arms out of their bullpen? It's a lot of fun, but it's an absolute mess to try and navigate. So I definitely think that, we're getting towards the end of it. And another factor we have to keep in mind is most of these teams are playing next week. So, even though we're looking at this like this is a game a team should win or should lose, you have to remember the fact that a lot of these teams are going to be playing in the regionals next week, and they want to make sure they're putting themselves in the best position. So certain guys that might be originally scheduled to go longer than they would might not be because they want to be fresh for the regional weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's tough to, we get very few starting pitching matchups before games. So you kind of have to assume the strategy of certain teams. And then there are also certain teams that just don't try or don't care, or they don't pitch any of their top pitchers unless they make, say, the semifinals or win their first 2 games. So it's definitely tough to navigate, but it is fun week.
It's a lot of fun. So, John, listen, it's conference finals weekends, right? We're going to get into some of the games in just a bit here, but let's talk about bigger picture. Who's impressed you most this weekend? Any conference, any team?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Oklahoma. I mean, we saw them 2 years ago make it all the way to the College World Series finals, right? And they've had a solid season, but they didn't overly impress. They kind of went on a run to make that College World Series finals. But this team they've been dominating the Big 12 all season long. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the Big 12 hasn't been as strong as it has been in the past, but those are some tough teams and, very good pitchers in that league. And all they've done is just dominate. They won their first couple games. Even when it seems like they go down, they come back really fast. They've got a lot of arms. So Oklahoma's really impressed me. I'm very heavily considering throwing another future out on them, maybe before this championship game, because if they do win, I feel like it'll go down. If they lose, it doesn't change my mind in terms of if they can make a deep run here.
It's interesting you say that because Oklahoma, I put out the tweet on them yesterday after Jackson Nicholas walked it off, capping a 6-0 comeback, which is like Kansas, bro. Come on, man. You had a chance to steal a bid. But I was like, wow, Oklahoma obviously throughout the season was much better than they were in 2022. But the similarities were, they just got hot in the tournament and that in the Big 12 tournament, and that's what sparked it for them. But, the thing is, I felt like Oklahoma's team in 2022 was way better, way more talented than what they have here. I mean, their Friday guy, Braden Davis, this year, he's been good at times, and then certain times he's been great. Kyson Witherspoon, but I don't know. I don't know if they're top to bottom as talented, but they're finding ways to win games. And, it always depends on the draw you get in the regionals and the super regionals. So, Oklahoma really – I would say it would surprise me, but I don't know if I could actually say it's going to surprise me. But John, the team that I'm going with, how can you not say the LSU Tigers? How? This is a team that was a borderline, maybe we get in field of 64 final bubble team on Monday afternoon to they're locked in. They're locked in. Now they're probably a 2 seed. Now LSU is a team nobody wants to face. And let me put it to you for not only you, but everybody listening. And this is really what pissed me off. So LSU is a team that I was kind of like keeping my eye on in the futures market. There was 55 to 1s out there, maybe 60 to 1. That was probably the highest I've seen it at all this year. So Monday, that's the price. Tuesday, they win their game, fine. And I'm like, you know what? They win their first game against Georgia. I'm like, okay, I think they might be in, but I don't want to bet them until I feel like I'm 100% that they're in. So I'm like, okay, let me keep an eye on this Kentucky game. If they beat Kentucky, I think they're definitely in, and I'll take them. What do you know? They smoke Kentucky everywhere. Every book after that Kentucky game moves from 40 to 1, 55 to 1, all the way down to 25 to 1 or lower. Now there's nowhere bigger than 20 to 1 you can get LSU. On DraftKings, they're 11 to 1. This team on DraftKings was 40 to 1 on Tuesday, and now they're 11 to 1. So, I mean, it's a little bit annoying, but dude, LSU is going to be dangerous. They're going to be a 2 seed nobody wants to face, especially if Gage Jump and Luke Holman continue to throw the way they have been.
It's going to be like last year when they put Tennessee and Clemson's regional, and Clemson's one of the best teams in the league. I think they won the ACC tournament last year, and they're one of the best teams in the league. And then you've got Tennessee as your 2 seed. Like that, that was so brutal. But yeah, they're going to be a team just like that.
So for the SEC tournament, we have a couple live prices. Obviously, there's a few games left, but let me ask you something. Instead of handicapping game by game, do you think there's any value on these numbers FanDuel's provided us? Tennessee's plus 130, LSU's plus 240, Vandy's plus 370, South Carolina's plus 440.
I mean, I don't love playing tournament futures, to be honest, like at this point, just because I feel like you can kind of make more money and decide game by game, knowing the pitching matchups. But when you look at those numbers, I mean, the one that sticks out to me is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt won the tournament last year. They're 2-0. They have to win one of the next 2 games to make the final, and they're the third.
No. This is single elimination, so they have to win today.
Oh wow! It's this goes back to
the format is so confusing. It's single elimination, then it's double. Then when you get to the semifinals, it's single,
double, single, and that is why. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that. To be honest, that's good to know for capping this too, because I was going to go with a couple overs, assuming that those teams were going to, if they were going to go down in game 1, they would save pitchers for game 2. But that is wild. That makes no sense to me. Then what's the advantage of winning the first 2 games? Like, either way, but that's besides the point. We can get into that another time. But I mean, then that being known, to be honest, I don't see any value in these because Tennessee, I mean, maybe LSU at plus 240. I think they're probably the best look just because they should have the advantage over South Carolina getting into that final. And then, I mean, like you said, they're, very dangerous. They could have Gage Jump come back and pitch in that game as well. They likely will in the finals if they make it there. So if anything, I would go LSU at plus money, but I don't love it.
So for me, I talked about giving LSU out at 12 to 1 pre-tournament. I was very adamant, and of course I was right in saying that I felt like at least one of the bracket 1 teams will be in the finals of the SEC tournament. And with South Carolina, LSU, both bracket 1/bracket 2 teams, one of them is going to be in the finals. Now, I took that 12 to 1 ticket in LSU, so I'm looking at this a little bit differently. So now I'm trying to think for myself here, because we're going to get into this Vanderbilt handicap in just a moment, and that matters of why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. But You could get Vandy at 370. Now, if you took LSU 12-1, like I did, like I gave out, you're looking at a team that I personally think beat South Carolina today. I'm not exactly sure who they're throwing, but I know South Carolina's bullpen and arms are much more depleted than LSU's. Not to mention LSU's way hotter.
I think I saw it was Javon Coleman.
Is it Coleman?
I think so.
I would have guessed maybe Cade Anderson or Gavin Guidry.
I saw the starting pitching matchup somewhere, and it was and I want to say it was Coleman. That being said, there have been multiple times where I've seen starting pitching matchups before, and they've been wrong. But I did see Coleman as a starter somewhere.
I got to be honest, though, I don't really care who's starting for LSU. I don't. I mean, you're looking past the point where they're just so hot right now. I don't think it really matters. And to be honest, whoever they start is probably going 2 or 3 innings. Like it's not. They're not relying on them to go 6 innings. So the fact is, I think LSU wins. They're somewhat big favorite. They're a pretty big favorite today, -175. But if they win, and I'm riding a 12-1 ticket, Vanderbilt at +370 makes sense because they're +150 today against Tennessee. So if you bet that and then you rolled it over, and if they played LSU in the finals, they're probably, I would say, a +120 favorite. So you're not even equating the value if you try to roll it over game by game. But the point is, I think Vanderbilt has a really good shot to beat Tennessee today. Carter Holton is supposed to be available. I think he's probably going to start. And if you followed me all year, I talk about the Tennessee offense struggles against quality lefty pitching. Holton did very well against Tennessee a few weeks ago. Even if you look at it, like Tennessee didn't take advantage of Pico Cone last night. A ton of base runners, one of which was a mistake. Amani Larry threw a ball away. There was a double steal that Mississippi State was content to let Tennessee score, like the double steal second and then home. But to be honest, I think that's where I'd probably look at if I was thinking about taking another future. And I think it'd probably be better than taking Vanderbilt's money line today.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you there at all. I like that.
I would talk about the ACC, but for whatever reason, FanDuel has that locked, so we don't officially have odds. But let's get into the games here. We could kick this one off with an ACC team, and that's the Wake Forest Demon Deacons against the FSU Seminoles. The Deeks fresh off a 12-inning instant classic game against UNC where they led 4-0 behind a 15 strikeout performance from Chase Burns. Who you got?
I think I like the total best here, and I think I like the over, to be honest. I don't know. It should be Josh Hartle, right? I mean, we're assuming once we have to assume starting pitching matchups. And then Cam Leiter might come back at some point this weekend, but I think I saw he was going to be a reliever if he does. So I'm not sure who would start. If what?
I don't know if I don't think he's coming back this way. I thought I saw something that said Leiter is out for this weekend.
Okay, maybe out for the weekend. I don't think he's starting either way, but I do think my favorite play here is the over, just because of, mainly the Florida State bats are very hot, and then the Florida State bullpen is not very good at all. And then you go to Wake Forest side, and their bats can go cold. It seems like every single time one of their batters comes up to bat, they're all just trying to hit a home run. It doesn't matter, and it's really frustrating sometimes. But their bullpen was so worked after yesterday's game. They had to run through multiple relievers late in the innings and going to extra inning games. So I think my favorite play here would be the over. The park's been playing pretty small in Charlotte as well. So hopefully it doesn't come out, at around 14.5. That might be a little too high for me, but if it's 12.5, 13.5, I think I'd play it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Where would you play it to? Because we haven't seen anything. Excuse me. We haven't seen anything in relation to a total right now. But I was going to say, I think 12.5 is a fair number. 13.5. I feel like 14.5 might be getting a little touch high, but at the end of the day, I think that the big key here for FSU is they got to get on Hartle early. If they can get Hartle early, get his pitch count up, steal a couple runs, then you're starting to really have an advantage swing in favor of FSU because, like we saw yesterday, a lot of bullpen arms. I think there was like 8 bullpen arms used for Wake Forest. So Florida State is the much fresher team, and I think that would heavily swing in favor. And this line was actually Wake minus 145, FSU plus 114, probably less than an hour ago. And there's been some money coming in on FSU. And John, preseason, pre-tournament for the ACC, I had NC State, a future on them. I was very disappointed how they lost to Duke and no show, and I thought they had a really good chance to win. And I took a future on them when it came out for them to match up with FSU in the finals. Rip that up. But FSU was another ticket I'm currently holding at 8.5 to 1. So if you're me, what would you think the best strategy is? Because FSU at 8.5 to 1, that's a full unit play. Would you ride FSU, or would you maybe hedge here, and then if FSU ends up winning, hedge again?
I'm not much of a hedger. I do like to hedge if it's the right situation, but it seems like it's really tough to hedge in the semifinals when the other team is the favorite, right? So I don't love it right here. I do think, I think there's good value on Florida State. They could definitely win this game. So maybe if they make the finals, then I wouldn't mind hedging. But I think here, semifinals and against a team that's a favorite, is just a little too early to hedge. So I would just stick with it at this point.
So do you think, for me, now I'm sure there's other people that are in the same situation. So this is why I want to just open up the conversation. Maybe, some people could get an insight here. So if I'm holding an 8.5 to plus 850 ticket, and FSU has to win 2 more games for that to cash to win the ACC tournament, do you put a play out for Florida State? Or you're just riding this ticket?
I would definitely think about it. It depends how much I believe in that team. Like I don't mind it. It would obviously be tough to have a double loss, but it's still only 2 plus 20 losses, right? So I don't mind it if you want to go for it. I think if it were like a final, then I definitely wouldn't double down. But in this situation, I don't mind it at all in the semifinals if we're not going to hedge.
Who do you think's strong for FSU? I feel personally like it's probably Connor Whitaker coming out for 3 innings or so, and then they're just going to piece it together.
I really have no idea. That's the thing here is Wake Forest. Like I think Josh Hartle should pitch. I think he will likely pitch, but we don't know. Like the other day with Oklahoma State, they went 1-0, and they were could have gone 2-0 and essentially had the fast track to the finals. They don't pitch either of their top starters, Garcia or Holiday, against UCF. They lose that game. Then they pitch Garcia and Holiday, win the next 2 games. And now they don't have either of them for the finals. So like I said, trying to predict starting pitching matchups this week is just a losing effort. But I would assume that's him. It's him.
I think now, this has become a point in the year. We're not going to see this as much throughout the month of June. Like, you're going to see maybe a little bit for the regionals, because a lot of times with regionals, in the regionals, that the regionals is the biggest mess to handicap. But the super regionals are a lot easier because that's a normal 3-game series. And then Omaha is a little bit messy. So I think personally the ACC and SEC and all these conference tournaments are a bigger mess than anything we'll see in the month of June. But this is, I feel like, made us a lot stronger of handicappers, because now we're trying to use deductive reasoning for handicapping a game that we don't necessarily have pitching. Like, we have to guess, but we're also playing different scenarios. Like, okay, if this guy throws, I like this team because X, Y, Z. So we're digging a little bit deeper. I do like FSU today. I don't care if Josh Hartle's throwing. FSU's offense has been great. I'm putting them out even though I have a ticket because, I believe in Florida State. Florida State is a team that I have some of my most equity on. Straight up, I think Mississippi State, Northeastern definitely, then Mississippi State, then Florida State in terms of a straight bet are the teams I have the most equity on. Arkansas and Oregon State, I have a little bit of different action in there as well. So I'm heavily invested in Florida State this year, and I believe in them. And I think even without Jamie Arnold or Cam Leiter throwing, they can find a way to get it done in a revenge game against Wake Forest.
Yeah, I like it. I don't mind that at all. I'd probably lean Florida State if I were going to play a side.
Yeah, let me draft that up here. We're going to get a little FSU plus money, 105. All right. We talked about it a little bit, but now we're going to get Tennessee, Vanderbilt. There's even some plus 154s, 155s, depending on where you're looking for this game if you're looking to bet Vandy. So let me ask you, do you think Tennessee is going to just go nuts here?
I don't think so. I would probably lean Vanderbilt at this number. I think Tennessee's way too heavily favored in these tournaments. It seems like this isn't like a regular season game where, you know, a team should win and so they do win. This is totally different. Like Vanderbilt, it's one game. You know, one hit can totally change the game. Vanderbilt's a solid team. They're good enough to beat Tennessee. So I wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt comes out and wins this game. We also saw them last year win the tournament, and you know they didn't really carry that momentum into their regionals, but they played really well in the tournament. So I would lean them at plus money.
Yeah, I think Vanderbilt is definitely the play, and like I said, I don't know this for a fact, but I would say I'm 90% confident that Carter Holton starts / has a pretty relatively deepish outing. I would say Carter Holton's good for at least 5 innings today at some point if he pitches well. And Carter Holton threw really well against Tennessee a couple weeks ago. 5 innings, 1 earned run. And not to mention, I've said this many times throughout the year, the Tennessee Volunteers, their offense has struggled against solid, quality lefty starters. That doesn't mean they always lose, but if you noticed yesterday, their offense wasn't that great. Their offense, they left 10 runners on base in the first 4 innings. Pico Cone was able to navigate out of traffic. Really, Mississippi State gave Tennessee 2 of their 6 runs. I think this is a real opportunity where you're playing a really good matchup game. And Carter Holton, he's a very good pitcher. He hasn't had a great year this year, but he's going against an offense that has not been great against lefties. And Carter Holton is definitely, for our money, probably one of the top 10 lefty starters in college baseball. He's probably overall top 25 starter. I think that's a fair assessment, John.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that one.
Let's get to the South Carolina LSU game. We don't officially know who's throwing for either one. LSU is laying a 175 here. You just got to lay a big number with the Tigers?
Like I said, this is one I was going to lean over. I was looking towards the over, assuming that this is double elimination in this round. But having it be single elimination changes that a bit because both these teams are going to go all in with their pitching, right? And, you know, there's no tomorrow. So you're kind of going to use – a guy doesn't have his stuff. You're going to have a way shorter leash. This is a tough one. I'd probably lean LSU, but I don't want to pay minus 175 for them, to be honest, because, like, these games can really go either way. And that game, the first game between these two teams was so – it literally, you know, went down to the last inning, the last at bat between these two teams. So I'd probably lean LSU on the money line, but I don't like it at that number.
I agree. I'm not paying 175, especially holding a 12-1 ticket on LSU. In terms of a handicap, I'm not going to put out South Carolina just so I can hedge myself because I don't like South Carolina here. I'm going to stay off this one, hold on to my futures ticket. Maybe personally what I'll do just to kind of gain a little equity is maybe take South Carolina plus 1.5 or something, throw 1 unit or 2 units on that and then see what's going on here. But I personally don't like laying LSU minus 175, so I won't, especially the fact is, like, you know, the pitching the pitching's a little bit in question when we think it's Coleman, but if you're holding the LSU ticket like I am, I'm staying away. I'm not touching anything here. And I think they should win, but I'm not willing to double down at this number. A game that I'm still trying to figure out, John. Miami, Duke. Gage Zeal, yet again, was fantastic against Clemson the other day. This guy's been unreal this year. He's had a lot of great outings. He's burned for this game. I believe it's going to be Hernandez, Enrique Hernandez, the Sunday guy for Miami against. I'm pretty sure it's Kyle Johnson. Inside source told me it is Kyle Johnson that's pitching. You're paying minus 180. Kyle Johnson's had a lot of good moments this year. He was good against UNC at the end of the last weekend. Is it worth 180 for Duke today? Who's still fighting for a hosting seed, by the way.
Yeah, I think so. I think these types of tournaments match up perfectly for the type of team that Duke is, to be honest. And the fact that they have even a starter for this game is a plus. But we know how good their bullpen is, how they have so many options in that bullpen. And the thing is, in college, in MLB, right, you have, say, 4 relievers, and each of those guys can go 1 inning, and those are your options. In college, it's different. If you have 4 really good relievers, you can lean on one of those guys to go, 3, maybe 4 innings if you really need to, if one of those guys has his stuff. So this Duke team is built to win these types of games. They have the bullpen depth. They have the starting pitching. I think Miami's a good story. They're hot right now, but they did almost blow that last game after an early start. And I think Duke can just match up with them better. So I do like Duke on the money line here, even though it's a little juicy.
It's funny. So Duke early on in the season got off to a hot start. I remember talking about them. And they just kind of played well for most of the year. They had a couple stinkers, a couple series that no good. And then towards the end of the year, they kind of cooled down a little bit. They lost to UNC. They lost to Florida State. And everybody started forgetting about them. Their numbers in the future started drifting. You could still get a very favorable price. But like Duke was in the 16, 17 to 1 on a lot of shops. Now they're past 20 to 1. Some of them they're in the 30 to 1 territory. A lot of people are forgetting about the Blue Devils. They're getting their ace, Jonathan Santucci, back. Either if they win this game, I think he's throwing tomorrow. But he'll definitely be back for the regionals. Duke still a very talented team. Nothing really changed with Duke. The Duke that we saw early in the season that was 70 to 1 and came down to 40 to 1. So just remember the Blue Devils, in my opinion, it was a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, John, about Duke after the way they lost some of their games. And, I think the NC State win was huge. But let's not forget who the Duke Blue Devils are. This is a team that is very talented. They have, if they don't have the deepest pitching front to back in the country, they have the second deepest pitching behind Arkansas. Andrew Healy was great against NC State. This is a guy that was been kind of hit or miss this year. He silenced a red hot Wolfpack team. Futures wise, let's not forget about Duke. If you haven't taken a piece of Duke and you're able to get 25 to 1, 30 to 1, that is a bargain, John. And I highly advise taking a piece of them because they might not host. I think there's probably a better than not chance. Even if they win the tournament, I think it's probably 70-30 in favor of them hosting. But if they don't win, I think they're a 2 seed, and I still think they're going to be a dangerous 2 seed to whichever region that they go to.
Yeah, 100%. I've actually got a future on them just to make the College World Series right now. So I'm hoping that they end up hosting.
Yeah, I'd like to see them host that. I think it'll be fun. I don't have that much exposure on them. I have a few shekels on Duke from early in the season to win it all. But I definitely think, if Jonathan Santucci gets on that Cade Horton-like run, speaking of Oklahoma, if he gets on that Cade Horton kind of run in June, he can carry this team straight to the College World Series finals. Cade Horton, for those that don't know, 2 years ago for Oklahoma, which we're talking about the Sooners before, was part of that big run that saw Oklahoma go to the finals. Now, Cade Horton was coming off Tommy John. He hadn't really pitched much. Nobody really knew anything about him. And then he starts in the Big 12 tournament, lights up. Who was it? Was it OK State or was it Texas?
I don't remember. He was good in every outing in the postseason.
But then come June, he was a man on a mission. Cade Horton went from being unknown, probably coming back to Oklahoma for another year, to being a first-round pick. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the 7th overall pick by the Cubs. So if Santucci, who is a lot more well-known coming into the year, who is regarded as probably a first-rounder, if he go on that Cade Horton type of run, we're going to see his stock rise definitely into the first round and Duke making a deep kind of run here in the month of June. John, I'm going to give you this one because I've like what the word is. I've kind of kept myself a little bit informed of what's going on in the Big 12, but I haven't really followed the Big 12 since the first couple days. I can't bet it anymore. It's the conference is a disaster. If we're being honest, I can't bet it anymore. It's frustrating to me. So, we know Oklahoma State's kind of burned their top 2 guys here. It's a coin flip. This is the championship finals between OK State and Oklahoma. The Red River rivalry. Is it the Red River or is it the Bedlam? I'm not sure. I kind of messed that one up. But these two teams don't really, if we're being honest, have much to play for at this point. OK State's locked into being a regional host. Oklahoma is, I would think, top 8 national seed at this point. But, for pride, they're already here. Might as well win the goddamn game. Who gets this one done?
I like Oklahoma. Like I was mentioning earlier, Holiday and Garcia both burned for Oklahoma State because of, in my opinion, terrible managing strategy, to be honest. And so they burned both their 2 guys. And so they're going to have to go with bullpen game or, maybe one of their midweek starters. And I mean, I think Oklahoma is just red hot right now. I think they're playing too well, especially within the conference. They've got good pitching, good relief, and they definitely have the better bats, which is a big thing here. Because, with neither team necessarily having their best starters, this could end up being a hitting contest. So I would definitely lean. I like Oklahoma here to win.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think, and I haven't seen who Oklahoma State threw earlier in the week. I don't remember. I know Garcia and Holiday are cooked. They're done. You think they maybe turn to Carson Bench for a couple innings here?
He was so dominant in his first outing. I would assume he's available. He's got to be right for at least a couple innings. So I don't see why not. But then as well, he also hits. So who knows where his energy levels are at in terms of pitching and where he'll be there. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think that's definitely an option.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a play here. I'm not playing anything. I kind of stayed off the Big 12 for the week. But it's definitely a good point. Oklahoma is red hot. They won the Big 12 regular season title for a reason, which I feel like a lot of us were surprised about. We didn't expect Oklahoma to be as good as they were this year. But, it is what it is. They've definitely earned it. John, we have one more. USC, Arizona. This is the finals as well. Arizona's only minus 160. USC, let's give them a lot of credit, man. This is a team that has been out of the NCAA tournament for 10 years. And USC has fought and clawed their way. They didn't have the best season in the Pac-12 this year. They had a couple nice wins. They beat Oregon State. And I don't know if they're a bubble team right now unless they win. But Arizona, I'm riding that plus 410 pre-conference tournament bet. Arizona's pitching has been really good. Their hitting has been competent. I think this is an Arizona play.
Yeah, I definitely lean Arizona there. I believe Caden Aoki's coming back and starting for USC, and he's been their, by far their best starter this season. So it'll be interesting to see how he pitches on short rest. I think he'll at least, keep it competitive. And maybe they do win because the Pac-12 has been, wild this year. I mean, I would not have picked these two teams to be facing the four teams that were in the semifinals too. I would not have picked to be in the semifinals. So I would probably lean Arizona here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to end up playing it. I just like these Pac-12 teams have been burning me for so long, and I feel like you can't trust any of them, but I would lean Arizona.
Trying to decide what I want to do because, like I said, I got that plus 410 ticket. It's a relatively solid little number. And now we're in the finals. USC's 124. And if we're being honest, this number is going to get bigger. I feel like this number is probably going to reach plus 140 by game time. Could see Arizona get to 180. I'm wondering, do I throw USC in there just to kind of maybe middle it? Or do I just go full-on tilt Arizona because this is a game that they should win? I mean, Caden Aoki's no joke. He has the capability to be a really good starter. So I'm struggling with that decision a little bit. What do you think?
I'd probably stay off, to be honest. You got the good value. You've got a minus 160 at a plus 410 right now. I mean, it is a good – this is a definitely good hedge option. The opposing teams at plus money, you can get them plus 124. You're at least profiting 0.24 units there. But at the same time, Arizona should win this game. You've got them plus 400 essentially. I think you'd stick with it. I personally would.
That's right. I do like that. I do like that look. I'll probably just stay off then. I think that's a good point. John, before I let you go, do you have any other teams maybe that you're looking at either today or you're looking at taking a ticket on to win the College World Series? Anything that you might be wanting to share?
One more team that I got to talk about, Tulane. I mean, they won the AAC tournament last year. They've been in this situation before. They're playing FAU today. They're at minus 135. They're playing FAU for the second time. They beat FAU 2 out of 3 times on the road earlier this year. They beat them earlier in this tournament, and they didn't just beat them. They beat them down and run ruled them in 6 and 7 innings. They scored like 12 runs in the first 3 innings, I want to say. So I think Tulane finishes it today. I think they make it to the conference finals. I think they're red hot, and for whatever reason, they always seem to turn it on at this point in the year. And FAU's way down in their pitching staff, so they're going to be all hands on deck there. I like Tulane to stay hot, and I like them at a short money line, minus 135.
I might tell you on that. You give a pretty good argument. Now, let me ask you, if Tulane didn't win the game today and win their conference tournament, would they still be in the field of 64, do you think?
No, not even close. They're only I want to say they're 32 and 26-ish, something like that. They're only 5 or so games above 500. They finished 15 and 12 in the AAC, something like that. So, no, they've got to win this tournament to be in.
So they're a bid stealer.
They would be a bid stealer. And, I mean, depending on how this ECU-Wichita State game goes, somebody in the AAC is going to be stealing a bid if ECU doesn't win one of these next 2 games.
Now on the other hand, FAU a field of 64 team? Are they a bubble team, or they have to win as well?
They have to win as well. We're
going to get one bid stealer. We're definitely getting a bid stealer today, at least.
Exactly. And speaking of, Wichita State just went up 3-2 in the 8th inning here. So, and ECU, I mean, ECU is the only team that even has a chance to get in that large bid in the AAC. No other team is even, I think every other team has at least 20 losses, 24 losses, something like that. So there's going to be a bid stealer in this conference if ECU doesn't win out.
Well, let's hope. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I want Florida out. I don't want Florida in. They don't deserve to be in. They're 1 game over 500. Everybody creams over RPI, which is a bunch of bullshit. And all these stupid metrics, we simply look at the fact that they're 1 game over 500. They lost 5 of their last 6 series. They lost the first game of the SEC tournament. They got swept at Mizzou. They lost all their midweek games to Florida State, to Stenson, to whoever else they played. They lost early in the year to St. John's. Like, what are we talking about? Everyone's like, oh, they're quad one wins and they're SOS. Like, who the fuck cares, man? Like, why are we talking about the Gators being a team that should be in the tournament? I really don't get it. And I think all this RPI nonsense, it's all crap. It's stupid. Like, Indiana State has a top 10 RPI. They play in a conference that's basically fit for D2 baseball. I don't get it. And I'm not a big analytics guy, and I think RPI is some form of analytic to judge what ranking a team should be. I think it's stupid. It's dumb. Florida should be out. And you're asking, well, why do you want Florida to be out? That's a good question. 3 reasons. Number 1, I have Charlie Condon riding him hard for Golden Spike's future that I took early March. I don't want Jack Caglione in there to have any chance to accrue any more stats. I want Condon done, lock it up. Also took Travis Bazzana for safekeeping. Second, Florida is just the type of team that would be the last team in to go into a region and go on a run. Better yet, they would be the team that goes into, let's say, Florida State's region, who I'm heavily invested in. Florida State, who's worked very hard this year and had a great season, just for Florida to come in and steal a couple games. Number 2. Number 3, it sets a bad precedent. You can't have a one team above 500 win coming in to this tournament. No. I refuse to allow it. No go.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think RPI is awful. I think it's obviously going to favor the teams. Also, you like RPI, you look at the conference schedules, but then most midweek games for these teams are going to be teams that play close to you, right? So obviously teams that are, in the South and, Auburn, Alabama, or in the Carolinas, they're going to play a lot better teams midweek. Whereas if you're on the West Coast, like saw people talking about like California, their RPI is 60. And so I don't think that they'd get it. I mean, who's California going to play midweek? And it's not like the Pac-12 is the strongest conference in the world this year. So it's also not totally up to these teams, like who they put on their schedule. And, if that team is going to be good. I think RPI is awful. I think you really have to just look at the team, the record, and who they play and their conference record.
And also, let me vent here while I'm at it. Mississippi State, if they don't host, it's the biggest travesty. I think it's the biggest travesty we've seen. And people are like, oh, well, their RPI fell. Okay, this is a team that has 19 or 20 wins in the SEC. 19 or 20 wins in the SEC. They've won almost 40 games outright this year. What are we talking about? Meanwhile, we're putting Indiana State and Santa Barbara, who plays in a bad conference, who didn't even beat anybody this year outside of Oregon. They lost to Irvine when Irvine was ranked top 16. They lost to Cal Poly. Like, what are we doing? And Mississippi State's not going to host because why? They want to diversify the top 16? No, we're not doing that. Like, Mississippi State has earned the right to host. And yeah, I'm saying it because I want them to host because I have a lot of money on them. Yeah, but also because they deserve it. And Judy Noble Field is one of the premier ballparks in college baseball. That place needs to host a regional. That environment is electric. That environment is more electric than the jungle in East Carolina. And we're talking about East Carolina hosting. I like East Carolina a lot. But they play in the worst conference. They play in a bad conference. But why is East Carolina going to host, John? Why? Because one of the board members has a son that goes to East Carolina. God forbid they don't host. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, I think it's terrible how they do this. But it is what it is,
And not for nothing. I was a little disappointed that Mississippi State lost to Tennessee last night and Vanderbilt the other day by 1 run each. So they couldn't win one of those games. That would have put all that shit to bed. But I felt after they won Ole Miss and A&M that was it. They had nothing more to do. And I still think that. And we don't know. They might still be hosting. I think they should be a 15 seed or a 16 seed. I don't care which one they are. But, if we're being honest, I don't, I think they've done enough, but you never know with the committee. Now, let me tell you something. I would much rather them, and I'll be honest, I would much rather them be in Indiana State's region as a 2 seed. And then if they win that region, then go play Kentucky, than them being a host where they would have to match up with Tennessee in the Super Regionals. So if that happens, I'd be okay with that. But I'm talking more of just a principle. So I had to let it out, man. I've been talking about this and like tweeting about this nonstop. So I had to just let it out. It's very frustrating to me.
I feel you.
But John, thank you so much for taking the time here. I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to talk tomorrow, but maybe I'm thinking we do a little something for Selection Monday. We break down the field, we break down maybe some of the odds, some of the good plays, and we have ourselves a day on Monday evening.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully we get odds after they come out. Well, that's a big question mark, but I'm down.
That's a big one. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. Best of luck today. Best of luck this weekend. And catch us on Monday when the field of 64 is set. We're out.